Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Look, I know everyone is excited about Mythosaurs and the redemption of the Mandalorian people, but while the third season of The Mandalorian is still in setup mode really, the Bad Batch continues to do some really interesting things. I mean, the most recent episode titled Outpost follows Crosshair once again, and I have to say, although it was sad seeing Crosshair leave the Bad Batch and turn into the enemy in the first season, now I see why it was so important for Filoni to actually do this. With Crosshair still embedded within the Empire, we get to actually see the transition period where the clones get shafted and sent to early retirement. And in all honesty, I've been really enjoying the tone of these Crosshair-focused episodes, whether it's him and Commander Cody clearing out that Separatist holdout, or this more recent episode located on Bartone 4. These episodes, just like Crosshair, feature less dialogue, and it's all about atmosphere, tones, and moods. It's almost as if all of the landscape and the music is mirroring what Crosshair is feeling inside as he's dealing with this transition. Long periods of silence are punctuated by short and violent firefights. It's a complete contrast to what things were like when Crosshair was fighting with the Bad Batch. If you take a look at those battles now, they're much more upbeat, energetic, and almost fun. Engagements were more like puzzles to be solved, and every mission was an exciting adventure. It's very different from Crosshair's current journey to the heart of darkness. He's now surrounded by impatient and cruel Imperial officers who treat him like dirt and ragged clones who are desperate to survive, fighting for a future that now no longer exists. One has to wonder, how much can Crosshair take? And why did he let himself get to this point in the first place, when everyone he's trusted, whether it's the Bad Batch, Captain Rex, or even Commander Cody, have all left the Empire? What makes Crosshair so loyal? But before we get there, I want to show you guys this awesome looking thing. It's the Black Moon Saber, and it's from ownersaber.com, which is our sponsor for today's video. This thing is awesome. What you are looking at right here is a replica of the famed Darksaber, symbol of leadership for the Mandalorian people. This saber has a very solid and heavy hilt and a custom-shaped LED lightsaber tube that gives you the distinct Darksaber look. Ownersaber.com has also added this to their lineup. It's a lightsaber scabbard, and it works with almost all of Ownersaber.com's lightsabers except for the Black Moon, for obvious reasons. It's a pretty awesome accessory, and it's a great way to carry your lightsaber around when you're cosplaying or practicing your quick draw attacks. Check out the description down below for more information, and add in the promo code MAN20, that's all caps, to get 20% off of your order. Also right now, if you purchase a Padawan or Master Saber, you can get 50% off the purchase of a Scabbard. And if you get a Replica Saber, you get the Scabbard for free. Just add in all of the items to your cart at checkout. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. Now, initially, Clone Force 99 believed that Crosshair was just following the orders of the inhibitor chip in his brain. These control chips didn't have as much of an effect on the mutated clones of the Bad Batch, but could still provoke some pretty aggressive behavior, as was the case with Wrecker. But in the finale of the first season, we get this shocking revelation.
I had my chip removed a long time ago.
Clone Force 99 is stunned by this revelation, and I think this really shows us how differently these two groups view the Empire. Clone Force 99 views the Empire as an evil organization, but for Crosshair, it's kind of his identity.
This is who I am.
And so, who is Crosshair exactly? Well, people with his personality type usually don't reveal that much about themselves. And so the few times we do see Crosshair engage in conversations about politics and purpose, it becomes kind of clear what motivates him. Crosshair is a mutated clone. This gives him extremely sharp eyesight, good reflexes, and terrific spatial awareness. Every member of the Bad Batch had some kind of advantage like Crosshair, but in life, I mean, you only get so many attribute points to put into your various skill trees before you kind of run out. And so with every great strength comes another area of weakness. And so while Wrecker might be really strong, he's also cognitively pretty slow.
Went over the plan 5 times.
I got the package, didn't I?
Just keep moving.
Tech doesn't have that issue. He's really smart, but he does seem to lack some social communication skills.
Everything is changing, and you don't even care.
I am not sure how I should care.
Crosshair also has a trait that kind of balances out his advantage, and that is his very strict adherence to orderliness. That simply just means he likes things in order. He wants things to be arranged, planned, and neat. This could mean anything from keeping your room tidy to your sniper rifle barrel nice and clean and oiled, to making sure everyone in your neighborhood is also keeping their room tidy and their sniper rifles clean and oiled, which obviously is a bit intrusive. And that is the problem with people who are really into being orderly and want to force it onto others. They're all about order. They want to preserve their current social structure and way of life, and that is because they are terrified of change. Crosshair does have some issues with the Empire, especially their officer corps, but he kind of keeps that subdued because the thought of leaving the Empire is just way too scary for him to think about. Sometimes the unknown can be more terrifying than a terrible existence you already know how to deal with. And it makes sense he thinks this way. It's not just his biological preset, it's also because of his life experiences. As a Special Forces commando and sniper, he's given far more oversight on the day-to-day dealings of the Republic during the Clone Wars and later on the Empire. He's allowed to see how the bureaucratic gridlock of the Republic Senate caused clones to lose their lives. He sees the selfish nature of the political elite and how far removed the people on Coruscant are to the war that they are waging. In this way, he's not all that different from Anakin Skywalker, who was carefully groomed by Palpatine to see the Republic and the Senate and the Jedi in a very similar way. And as someone who loves the Republic, I agree there are a lot of issues with the system, but what makes it a good system is, they don't really silence people who try to make changes or who try to dissent. But why do Anakin and Crosshair so blindly support the Empire? Surely they can see the more negative aspects of this system, right? It's clearly inferior to the Republic. I mean, the Empire suppresses entire planets of people that refuse to take Palpatine's orders. Well, individuals like Crosshair, they score really high on orderliness, but they score relatively low on a trait called openness, which is focused on compassion, empathy, and equality. Individuals who are more open are more likely to embrace democracy or fight for the rights of minority groups or marginalized people. They're also more likely to see the faults in a fascist system, an authoritarian system, whereas people who are more orderly simply see the authoritarian system doing its best to keep things clean and neat and tidy, just like how they like it. Now, I have to say, just because someone is orderly doesn't mean they're automatically going to embrace authoritarianism. It actually matters a lot how they grew up in, what kind of propaganda they were exposed to, and what kind of system they grew up in. A person who's really orderly can still really love democracies, but they might just be more supportive of, institutions like the police, for instance. And people who favor the openness trait aren't harmless either. Openness can lead to anarchy as quickly as orderliness can lead to fascism. And both traits in their most extreme forms in a political system almost always leads to authoritarianism. On a side note, in case you are wondering, there have been plenty of psychological tests done on people of various political leanings, and it's been found out that, most conservatives score higher with the orderliness trait, and more liberals actually score higher with the openness trait, which should tell us something that, people, they're shaped by their experiences, but we're all more or less kind of born with a certain type of mindset that pushes us towards a certain type of political following, which means that it's almost pointless to hate someone for being liberal or conservative if they have very little choice over it. If anything, both sides, they just see the world differently. They have a different truth, and I think it's probably a good idea to take a look at how both sides look at the world and get a more complete view of how the world should function. It's also for this reason why I don't think we can look at Crosshair as a completely evil character. I mean, sure, he's done some terrible things, like, shoot that Separatist leader who surrendered or try to attack his own teammates. But like I've always said, if you truly understand a person and what makes them the way they are, you can only come to love them or pity them. And for Crosshair, well, the Separatists were the ultimate sign of chaos and destruction. He spent most of his adult life fighting against the Separatist droid army, trying to stop the chaos that they were spreading in the Outer Rim. So of course, he's going to have very little remorse in shooting that Separatist leader. And his life in the military has taught him that the chain of command is sacred, and when one fails to follow that chain, disasters can happen, people can die. This is most likely why when Hunter refuses to carry out Order 66 in that first episode, Crosshair, despite expressing distaste, still follows his commander's orders until they're finally all arrested. And so what some people might see as callous and uncaring behavior is actually just Crosshair being very thoughtful in his own way, following his own ideology and belief system. I mean, if you walked a mile in his shoes, you'd probably be more empathetic about the actions he takes here. While I watched Crosshair keep the injured clone warm through a blizzard, I really did begin to understand who Crosshair was. He's really not so different from the rest of the Bad Batch, which is why as a unit they work so well for so long. Crosshair isn't cold and unfeeling. If anything, he probably has more tact than Tech does, which isn't saying a lot.
I was one of you. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. And it's why I'm going to give you what you never gave me. A chance.
Crosshair clearly has the capacity to feel and to care for other people. This is why he begrudgingly saves Omega from drowning. He even repeatedly warns Hunter to stop doing what he's doing because it's harming her.
Omega belongs with us. Living among fugitives where she's in constant danger. You want to protect the kid and let her go.
I mean, if you think about it, well, actually, you don't have to think about it. It's pretty obvious, but Hunter is a terrible parent. He means well, but why would you give a child a compound energy bow, which is super inefficient? I mean, you can just give her a blaster, which would make her a lot safer. But there is one thing that separates Crosshair from the rest of the Bad Batch.
We're loyal to each other, not some empire.
For one reason or another, despite how much he loves his fellow brothers, despite how much Omega tries to win him over,
You're angry.
How perceptive.
I know it's not your fault.
for Crosshair, the Empire is his identity, and he is more loyal to it than even his own emotions and his own family. I mean, Omega, who's probably one of the most empathetic Star Wars characters ever, really understands this about Crosshair before anyone else did. She realized that the situation that the Bad Batch are going through here is incredibly tough for Crosshair, and for her. I mean, she understands what Crosshair must do, and she, just like the audience, really doesn't want Crosshair to do this. She doesn't want to see anyone leave.
I was thinking about Echo. It's weird without him around.
But every being in the galaxy, they have their own path in life, their own motivations, their own beliefs. And every now and then, a beautiful thing happens, and a group of like-minded people become friends and family, and they do many amazing things together. But because of the diversity of life, because we're all individuals, sometimes those groups break apart and people have to go their own direction. Now, Crosshair couldn't leave the Empire because without it, he felt lost. For an apex predator like him, trained to kill and survive terrible battlefield situations, the prospect of losing that all, that elite status, of being unable to figure out what to do next, is as terrifying as death itself. And so Crosshair has to find out the tough way that the Empire isn't for him. I mean, he fights really hard to try and make the Empire for him, but it just doesn't work out. And the same thing that breaks him breaks most Imperial defectors. It wasn't until Agent Callus witnessed how much the rebels cared for each other that he realized how empty his own existence within the Empire was. It wasn't until Iden Versio's own father ordered the destruction of their homeworld that she realized how little the Empire cared about its subjects. For Crosshair, it took longer than most, but what he does at the end of the last episode of The Bad Batch sets him on a trajectory of sorts. Let's just hope his real family can find him before the Empire turns him into some unthinking killing machine. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.